We're starting. Hey guys, Kathy Iconis here, and I am excited to get started on our latest live demo. I am going to be watching the screen, seeing if people are joining in and coming in. Yeah, now I'm starting to see some attendees jumping in here. So guys, if you are here, let us know where you're from or what's going on in life, anything like that, just to make sure that you can hear me. That way we have, then make sure it all works. Katrina, you're from SoCal. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got Jersey in there. So the audio is working. That's awesome. Yay. It's the little things in life for me. Great. So people are still rolling on in, but I want to pop in and let you know, I have all my screens just like blowing up over here, that I will be working the Q&A. So if you do have questions, please make sure you use the Q&A panel. It's really a lot easier for us to manage that way. Yeah, I want to make sure we get all your questions answered. If you do end up asking a question in the chat, I may just ask you to push that over into the Q&A panel. So without further ado, I want to introduce Brian with Shogo, and he is going to be telling us all about his wonderful app and what all you can do to support your clients. So, Brian, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Kathy. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. Shall I dive right in, or?
You go for it. You dive right on in.
Okay, so welcome again, everyone. So I thought I'd walk through sort of a presentation component of just kind of giving the background on Shogo, the company, and Shogo, the product. And then afterwards, we can dive a little bit deeper into some on-screen real-time demo sessions. And I guess we'll do Q&A throughout, but we'll also maybe try and save some time at the end for Q&A as well. So just to go ahead and dive right in. So Shogo is a cloud-based software as a service. Our primary purpose in life is to provide automated integration between various sales channel portfolios or platforms and various accounting systems. Our name actually derives from a Japanese word shogo, which means to collate or collate data. And that goes back to my co-founder. And in my origins, we started doing business together, doing large corporate treasury banking and ERP system development in Japan. So that's where we kind of started from. We were founded as a corporation in 2013. Currently, we're in about 50 countries. That includes all of the Canadian provinces and all of the United States and most of the territories. We have processed to date about $16 billion US equivalent across the globe. That is about 10 million accounting postings that we processed to date as well. And we're up to about 50 accounting partners, not just accounting partners, but about 50 partners in total, adding more frequently, several more added every quarter. In terms of a customer mix or sort of a perspective on who uses Shogo, right now we are split about 50-50 between people that are in the retail space versus people that are in the food service space. And in the food service space, we're split roughly again 50-50 between the folks that are in fine dining, table service types of point of sale and food delivery services and quick service, fast casual, things like that, split again 50-50. In terms of customer profile, we really don't have a specific customer target. And just to give some perspective, our largest single customer on the Shogo platform right now has about 160 locations, all under one Shogo account. And then our typical entry-level customer on the Shogo platform is usually going to be a customer that has, $250,000, $300,000 in sales annually or higher, just because of all of the additive costs of Shogo, QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks, and so that tends to be the revenue profile. At which point it's cost effective to hop onto using Shogo.
And I wanted to pop in and going back to the industries we have, and if you guys can pop in the chat area, if you support retail, food service, What's the makeup of your clients in those areas? It'd be great to hear. Okay, back to you.
Okay, I wasn't sure if
Sorry.
we're going to
I
pause
know.
pause for the feedback or keep going. I'm just going to keep going until you tell
We're
me.
gonna keep going. I just want to see what we got out there, and I'll butt in later.
Great. So the next, I was going to kind of go through the Shogo process of how you would actually go about establishing the Shogo account and setting it up. And it's really just a 1, 2, 3 approach. So we have a connection component to the setup, then we have a mapping component to the setup, and then once those 2 pieces are finished, we commence the posting process from the point of sale or sales channel into the accounting systems. So on the connection component, the first side typically, when you're setting up the Shogo account, is you start with the point of sale system. So you would create a Shogo account, you would connect it to a point of sale system. On the point of sale system side, I've kind of broken down our current partners. Again, we add several every month, every quarter, into kind of how these what they're delivering through their products. So we have here the food service partners. These are by and large all cloud-based point of sale systems, with the exception of the Micros E7 product and kind of the Brink. Brink is kind of a hybrid model. It has a server component, but it also has a cloud component to their analytics and reporting and so on. But by and large, we support pretty much most, if not many, of the cloud-based point of sale partners, point of sale providers in the food service cloud space. Just some examples. Toast is a fairly large player for multi-unit people. Maitre D is a Canadian. Touch Bistro is Canadian and US, Heartland, and so on. We also have retail point of sale systems we support. We have Lightspeed Retail, for example, Thrift Carts, Core Store. These are more vertical specific point of sales related to services or thrift store management, or Lightspeed is bicycles, jewelry repair stores, and things like that. And then we have some partners who are sort of multi-purpose point of sale. So Square's in that space. You can do food service or restaurant through Square, same with Shopkeep, NCR Silver. I think there was a question about NCR. We do support the Silver product. That's their lighter version of Aloha. It's cloud-based, but they do retail and food service. And then Clover. Clover is also across the board. It does retail, it does food service, and so on. And then we've also rolled out now support for e-commerce and payment processors. So we have some of the bigger players there. Shopify obviously is a big one. On the payment processing side, we've just released Stripe integration. In conjunction with Stripe, we also have WooCommerce. You can have WooCommerce with Stripe as your processor, for example. Same thing with Square. We have Square as an online store, or Square point of sale, or Square processor. And then Lightspeed Retail also has an e-commerce channel. So those are the channel partners on the point of sale side, or the sales side. So then we're just going to cover the accounting partners that we have. So we do support obviously QuickBooks. We support the online product for QuickBooks as well as the desktop product. In the desktop space, we support all of the flavors. So whether it's the accountant product, the nonprofit, the enterprise, and so on. And the last bullet point there, we do have quite a few customers actually using the hosted version of QuickBooks. So whether they're hosting it themselves or they're doing it through Right Networks, Swissnet, and some of the other players there. In Europe, we support Exact Online. That's a cloud product, again, predominantly used in the European space. Sage, we're supporting their Sage Business Cloud, is what they call it now. It used to be called Sage One. That is their sort of entry-level small business cloud package, again, similar to QuickBooks Online and Exact. We support Restaurant 365, and then we support Xero, which is an up-and-coming one from Australia that's making pretty large headway in the North American market now as well. But we also see a lot of Xero customers on the Shogo platform in the Australasia area, as well as in Europe. Coming soon, we have Microsoft Dynamics, the Business Central product, the cloud one that they have. That's in development. We're hoping to release before the end of the year. And then Sage, the Intact product that they have, is also their another cloud product. Both of these are more in the up market, a little bit more medium-sized business than small businesses. They're more of ERP types of packages, as opposed to just plain GL.
Right. And higher, like you were saying the other day, higher than enterprise.
Yeah, basically,
once you move out of that.
Yeah, we're seeing that we have a lot of customers on QuickBooks Enterprise. So, for example, we have a large retail chain that has about 100 locations on QuickBooks Enterprise, and they're about to just kind of outgrow that. And so that's why they're looking at the Microsoft Dynamics space.
Awesome.
And then the last piece is just going to be the mapping. So this is where you marry the two, the data from the point of sale system to where you want it to go to on the accounting side of things. I've kind of broken it down into the kind of high level components of how we group things and how we see things from an accounting mapping creation standpoint, and how we then that leads that to a full and complete posting to the accounting system. So we start with, what did the customer pay for? And we kind of have three big things or chunks of stuff that the customer could pay for. The first obviously being sales. And sales, currently we support, and I've used the nomenclature for kind of generically across the accounting systems that we support, whether it's a sales receipt or an invoice. I just kind of refer to both sort of synonymously, maybe as a sales receipt. But we support a summary journal entry. So you can just bang it in like you might be doing it just directly yourself, just debit this account, credit that account, and you're done. That's going to be summary data for an entire day, summarized at a sales category level. So it might be something like food and beverage or food, beer, wine, liquor, things like that. And we do a summary sales receipt. So it'd be the same thing, except rather than using, like for example, in the case of QuickBooks, instead of using a journal entry in your chart of accounts, a sales receipt is going to use your products and services or your items from QuickBooks Desktop from a QuickBooks Desktop standpoint. And so that again is still going to be summary level, but it'll be using that sales receipt template from QuickBooks or invoice for Xero, for example. One of the benefits for that is, for example, in QuickBooks, if you're familiar with sales tax reporting and you want to use sales tax reports in QuickBooks, you need to use a QuickBooks sales receipt or invoice for those sales tax reports to properly populate. You can't do that with a journal entry. So we support both methods. And the last method you see there is an itemized sales receipt or invoice. That's going to be, it's still going to be summary, but it's going to be summarized at the individual product level sold on the point of sale system. It's not transactional, it's still summary, but it's going to be, a 12-ounce bottle of Budweiser versus beer, right? So it's going to be at that micro product level, and it'll integrate with a unit price and a quantity sold. We see this used more often in our retail space customers that are actually using perhaps QuickBooks for inventory management. So they want to send over that quantity sold and then have that decrement on the QuickBooks side of things. But we have customers that use it in the restaurant space as well.
And Brian, when you have sales receipt / invoice, the invoice, I think you were saying, is more Xero's terminology for it.
Yeah, Xero uses invoices. Okay. QuickBooks has sales receipts and invoices. We use the sales receipt. So we post a sales receipt with the payment. So a sales receipt is basically a paid invoice.
Right.
So we send through a sales receipt that has the payment component embedded in the sales receipt, depending on some other bells and whistles that you switch on and off in Shogo. But basically, a QuickBooks sales receipt is a Xero invoice.
Right. So obviously, what needs to be done with whichever accounting system it is. Yeah, it's all developed
correct
the right way. Yes.
Yep. Yes. Same thing with Sage. Same thing with Zach. They all have. As I mean about the nomenclature, they all kind of journal entry seems to be somewhat common. So although some call it a general journal, other ones call it a journal. But in the sales receipt space, it's really just QuickBooks, I think, that has that sort of distinguishing character. I didn't know that. In Xero, for example, you can send through an invoice or you can send through a paid invoice. So we kind of support both approaches. And then the next thing, what the customer is paid for, would be the sales offsets, so the discounts, comps that are coming through. We support configurability here to track gross discounts. So you'd have sales, and then you'd post discounts, and you can group or categorize discounts based on what was sold. So was it or what was discounted actually? Was it food or wine or beer or liquor? Or you can categorize it by what was the purpose or nature of the discount. So it was a kitchenware, or it was an employee discount or a military discount, those kinds of things. And then the other approach we have is you can just net it. So you can net the discount with its sales category. So you'd have net food sales, net liquor sales, net wine sales, and so on. And I guess what's kind of an underlying theme that you probably see going throughout here is the real core approach we've tried to take to our integration is to make it as configurable and flexible as possible for the end user or for the accountants and bookkeepers. So we let you kind of replicate your workflow and what you're comfortable and familiar with, rather than kind of force feed you through, what we in a silo came up with as, this is how we think you should be doing things, period, and that's how you're going to get it. So we made it very open, very flexible, very configurable.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to pop in and say that. It's like we have tons of options, whichever flavor direction we want to go.
Absolutely. Yep. And then the last component of what did the customer pay for would be all all other, right? So there's going to be credit card tips. It's going to be sales taxes. For sales taxes, this, some of this is kind of point of sale dependent, but we support tracking individual sales taxes or sales tax rates or combined rates. For example, in some point of sale systems, Canada also being kind of a call out there in terms of how they handle combined rates or separate rates. So you have GST, PST, or you have HST, and so basically, however you're tracking sales taxes in the point of sale system, that can be replicated in Shogo, and then correspondingly we can replicate that in your accounting system, so that if you're in the UK or Canada, Australia, for example, where they have electronic filing for VAT and GST and things like that, we're compliant with all of the data inputs to feed into those auto filing reporting that comes out of the accounting systems. Other things, gift card sales, any other surcharges, basically everything else that the customer is paying for that's not sales, that's not a specific sale related item. And then the next kind of higher level bucket is, how did the customer pay? So what did they pay for, and then how did they pay? So this is where we let you map their credit cards, their credit card fees if it applies. So if it's a processor, if the POS is also a processor like Square or Toast, for example, and they provide the fees and they're netting those from your daily deposit, we can account for those. So when it goes to your QuickBooks, you've got the net bank deposit that's going to happen, and then the fee is automatically booked to expenses or wherever else you want to map it. Cost of goods sold, expenses, again, configurable up to you. But to the point is we segregate that net deposit from the fee when the posting goes over to your accounting system. And on the credit card side, that's also highly configurable as well. So for an example, there is a lot of processors, some of the more traditional processors that work with Amex, for example. In a lot of cases, for whatever reasons, the Amex deposit might go to the bank account separately from Visa, MasterCard Discover, as an example. Yep. So that's configurable in Shogo as well. You can send one line for Visa, MasterCard Discover because that's how it's going to deposit your bank account, and you send another line for Amex, and then you just tick it off in the bank rec.
Yeah, so then we get all excited with the match. Like, it matches.
Exactly, yeah. It's go,
it
go,
matches.
go, go. And then, go, 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 it's time to go to lunch. So then, everything else, delivery service, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Postmates, all of that, those are being tendered to the point of sale system, coupons, whatever, checks, physical checks, gift card redemptions, but just et cetera. That is where I put it up here. So basically, all of the non-cash stuff is kind of configured and mapped here. And then we get to the cash drawer and cash drawer operations. So here we have everything that's happening in the cash drawer. So pay-ins, payouts. So for example, I'm going to move my little camera over here so I can see what that said here. Pay and payouts, to the extent the point of sale system supports it, we can have typed payouts. So is the payout related to a credit card tip? Is it related to cost of goods sold? If the kitchen had to go out and buy something for the kitchen, office supplies, etc. So that all is configurable and supported. Cash over short, to the extent that you have a drawer operation count that happens in the point of sale system and it does report over short, that passes right through Shogo right to your accounting system. Cash drops, if you're doing physical drops into a safe or to the bank, you're actually entering, putting a bank deposit slip together. We support a cash drop approach, and then cash drawer is kind of what's left after. So it's the cash sales minus plus minus all this other stuff. What was the net impact, if any, to an opening or closing cash drawer position. And sorry, I'm moving the camera, messed up my mouse, sorry. So the last piece when all this is done is post. So you set it and forget it. I think when I ran through this with Kathy, I said we didn't coin the phrase, but it kind of applies.
Yep.
So once you set all this, press save. The following morning, Shogo is going to go out automatically your accounting or to your point of sale system or your e-com system, whatever. It's going to scoop up all those sales. It's going to run it through this mapping configuration, and it's going to do all the accounting audits and safety checks and so on. Does the accounting entry balance? Does everything have a home? And several other safety checks, sanity checks. If it fails, we'll let you know and kind of direct you into why. So an example of a failure would be you didn't previously sell wine, you set up a new wine sales category. That comes into Shogo, it doesn't have a home in QuickBooks, you need to take action on it. We'll send you an email that said, something happened here. We can't continue until you take action, that kind of stuff. And so we'll pull it all together, we'll collate it, we'll Shogo it, and we'll post it to your accounting system automatically every morning. If it's the cloud stuff, it's immediate. Same thing, we monitor that for pass fail. An example of a fail would be you delete an account in your QuickBooks account. Please don't do that, but if you do, that means we can't post to your QuickBooks because you've told us to put it somewhere that doesn't exist anymore. But that will cause a rejection and a failure when we try to post. It'll come back to us and we'll let you know.
I love how you use the terminology for the Shogo and it being collate.
I just kind of made it up just now.
Well, I do, and I love the
I just kind of
history
worked it
of
in. I
it.
just kind of worked it right in there.
It was perfect.
We used to have another pretty cheesy way we used Shogo that we decided we just couldn't go that route anyway.
But you Shogo it.
I Shogoed it.
That's awesome.
So the next I have up here is basically wanted to give a kind of an overview or highlight of additional functionality that Shogo is very strong on, and that's multi-location processing. In particular for bookkeepers and accountants, this can be appropriate because you might want to put a lot of customers onto the Shogo platform. We certainly hope you do. And this is how that would work. So one example is you have a customer that has 2 locations, 1 QuickBooks company file, and they want to use QuickBooks tracking classes to segregate the 2 locations. Not a problem in Shogo. Each location will have its own configuration and mapping. It'll have its own daily posting, but each posting will have tracking classes associated with it. Either you can do it at a line item level. So for example, if you track, we mentioned payouts earlier, if you want to put payouts to a corporate entity, but you want to put sales to the individual lower level class, you can do it that way as well. So you can do it at a posting level or at a line item level or anywhere in between.
So do you connect to classes in QBO then, or is it locations, or do you have the option?
Actually both. For QBO,
okay.
It's both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the difference is, I believe locations you
can't do line item.
Right, that's at the posting level. But another distinction is I think you can actually name locations. So you could call it store, or you could call it departments, or you could actually rename it. Whereas tracking class, I don't think you actually can call that something.
Yeah, it's always class. Exactly.
Another use case we had, this actually came up as a very popular use case, unfortunately during COVID, and so that's where we had to have a lot of customers that had a traditional restaurant that had to pivot to online ordering. We had a lot of customers, they're quite cheap on processing as an example, so that's why I threw Shopify up here. So they still had some stuff happening at the restaurant, maybe 25% capacity, but then they ramped up and used online ordering or order ahead ordering through Shopify. They set up basically 2 locations in Shogo, and we put them to 1 accounting system, right? So we were able to support them, 2 different sales channels for them on Shogo integration. I was still 2 postings, and again, they could class them based on do they want to track the store or the restaurant versus the online sales. Just again, it's the configurability, flexibility option here, and
right.
Hopefully you're getting the sense that it's not specifically related to in-store or online. These could be anything.
Right. Yeah, it's just an example of the one way of being flexible, and yeah, everyone has all these different scenarios, and they always think there's no way I can handle it. I'm so different, and the fact that you're like,
you'll never be able to do what I do, right?
Right. Like I feel like that's almost every time I got a new client. It's like we're totally different. I'm like,
At the end of the day, it's nuanced, not distinct.
Right. Yes. As long as you get that, and we can figure it out, and it seems like you have a ton of options, then we got it.
Yeah. And so in another case here, a use case is, I say franchise, but this could be a customer that has lots of locations. And particularly in the restaurant space, you probably find that a lot of times legal entity definitions, EINs, et cetera, are separate just for liability purposes and things like that. So if you have that scenario, you could have them all on 1 account, 1 platform. Franchise location 1 might be Fran 1 LLC, going to, maybe they're using QuickBooks Online for that location. Don't know why they would have 2 different ones for the same company, for the same overall enterprise, but who knows? Next one, Fran 2 LLC, goes to QuickBooks Desktop, and maybe they're in a shopping mall. They've got the store, the counter, and then they've got a kiosk out in the mall. Same thing, goes to 1 entity, but you could class it based on the revenue stream or sales channel there in the mall. And then Franchise 3 LLC goes back to a different QuickBooks Online company. So you can have multiple locations. Each one's going to have its point of sale connection. They can share accounting connections, or they can have their own. That's kind of the takeaway there.
Okay. Makes sense.
Other stuff in Shogo, we have some forecasting module. So example, and we track comp sales. So you can look in Shogo account at any time. We also send a daily recap every morning that shows, hey, here's what happened yesterday for your sales. Here's how that compared to the same comparable day last year, Tuesday to Tuesday. And then we also let you set, if we have your comp sales, we also let you set a sales goal. So I want to do 5% over last year. So you get an email that says, here's what you did yesterday, here's how that compared to last year, and here's how you're tracking towards your goal. Year-to-date, month-to-date tracking, all of that analytics is reportable inside your Shogo account. We have an online report where you can look at your posting review, as I mentioned before. We track your posting all the way through to pass fail. If something does fail or is on hold, you'll be able to see that online in your Shogo account. To some extent, we try to recover from certain conditions. An example would be in the restaurant space. It might be common, depending on the point of sale system, that they end the day, but they leave some checks open, right? So they've got some checks where someone wrote in the credit card tip, but they haven't finalized that and done the final swipe on the credit card, so it's still an open check, it's unsettled. So we will continue to try and reprocess that day until those open checks then become closed, and then we'll automatically post that for you once those open checks get closed. And there's some other scenarios. There's a specific one in the restaurant space of automatic error correction that we do. If something does go wrong, we'll let you know about it. You can look at it online as well. And then we have some things like product mix performance reports in Shogo as well for analytics. And this would be if, in the case of accountants and bookkeepers, if you wanted to ultimately give your customers access to a Shogo account, they'd be able to get some of this. Some of it's redundant or replicative of what's in their point of sale system. Others of it maybe a little bit better. So now we come down to the accountants portal. This is something we're actually launching next week at Scaling New Heights. But basically, we support accountants now. We have many accountants. Our largest accountant has probably about 80, I think, customers on the Shogo platform.
Wow.
And there's different approaches to it, but we're trying, the accountants portal is to sort of bring it all together and let you kind of have the approach that you want. So basically, you will be able to add clients to your portal, or a client that already has Shogo can add you to their Shogo account. We have a dual sign up, so a customer using Shogo wants to give you access to it, or you want to set your customer up on Shogo, and then you grant them an account.
But I have to say, Lisa Loeb just brought me back to high school. Thank you.
Yeah, that's Mike. That's my co-founder. He kind of made sure we had some generic names in there. He's a big baseball fan as well, as you might be.
Yeah, I saw the Hank Aaron, and then I'm like, wait, Lisa Loeb. I remember that.
And so, this is the accounting portal. Kind of the right is the same thing we had earlier. You can have as many customers on the Shogo platform as you want. There are no theoretical limits to that. Every customer can bring their own point of sale system. You're not restricting these. You can only work with the customers who are using Square. Only work with customers who are using Toast or something. And basically, our objective is to add as many point of sale systems to the platform as possible, so that eventually, if we're not already there, eventually we cover every point of sale system that your customers are using. You can bring them on board. And here I just made it all sort of to keep it simple, that all these locations are all connecting to QuickBooks. Presumably, you try to encourage your customers all to go to one accounting platform, but with Shogo, again, it's not a requirement.
So I have a question. When your experience with accountants, do you think that they really need to be experts in any of these POSs?
No,
or
that's the entire purpose of Shogo, right?
Okay.
We've kind of disembodied the point of sale from the accountants, right? So it'll all come into Shogo. You would need to understand how Shogo works, but the individual nuances of setting up the point of sale and so on, other than helping your customers say, when you're setting it up, let's try and structure your categories around how we want to see it in QuickBooks, right? So if you only want to see liquor, you don't care about food, beer, and wine, then set up a category just for liquor, things like that. But that's about as technically difficult as it would get on the POS side.
And then with you covering some of the forecasting stuff, it's not something that an accountant necessarily has to go into the POS to see. I mean, it all depends on what information is there.
Well, to be clear, the forecast is on sales. It's a of sales, and by default we do that because we've had customers on the Shogo platform for 3, 4, 5 years, and so if we have by default our forecast is derived from your prior year.
Okay.
So if you were on Shogo all of last year, we have that number, and then we say, well, what do you want to do this year? I say 5%, so plus 5. So when we have that plus 5%, and we also, because we had you all last year, we know your seasonality and your operability. So, for example, we know based on what happened last year, we know you're closed on Saturdays and Sundays. So when we generate your forecast, we don't generate a forecast for Saturdays and Sundays. So things like that.
So do you have to have that year history then?
No, if you are new to, for example, if you are new to Shogo,
right,
you had sales all last year, you can just type that number into Shogo as a lump number and then do the plus minus percent, and we'll still do the allocation.
Oh, cool.
But it's going to use our master database of seasonality. So we will adjust it based on pan Shogo customers. So we will say, the 4th of July or Black Friday, where we see
Right.
specific upticks or downticks on a specific day, that will get factored into your forecast across all of the broader Shogo platform.
That's cool.
With the accounting portal, we have tiered pricing. As you add more customers, you can see our pricing at shogo.io under the pricing. I didn't want to memorialize pricing into a webinar that hangs out there forever, so just go check our current pricing. And in terms of that pricing and billing, we do. I'm going to just minimize the camera.
So yeah, the one question we had about that so far was, is there an accountant level pricing for the clients? I guess, yeah, the difference between just clients and what the accountants
From a Shogo standpoint, it's a location.
Okay.
Which would include either an e-com or a brick and mortar or whatever. But if you have 3 locations, that's 3 locations. And we have tiered pricing: single location, 2 to 5, 6 to 10, 12 to 15, and 16 plus. There's our current pricing tier structure. And the per location pricing decreases as you add those locations. Right.
And what you were saying before is when, the business is kind of at what, 250K in revenue.
Yep.
It tends to be the part where, the cost benefit comes into play.
Yeah, I mean, people are making less than that a year in sales.
Yeah.
Probably not that concerned with daily accounting, daily operations, things like that.
Right.
Doing stuff once a month, if that. So paying $30 for Shogo, paying $39.49 or whatever it is right now for QuickBooks Online, paying a bookkeeper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just kind of that's kind of the threshold we've kind of observed.
Right. Makes sense.
So also in the accounting portal, we have several billing options. You could what we call customer direct. So you set up the account for the customer. They have the relationship with Shogo. They pay for Shogo directly. You can do consolidated billing, where Shogo bills you for all of your customers that are on the Shogo platform as one bill, or you could pay the bill, but it could be billed individually by customer.
So again, you have flexible options.
Yes, absolutely. One last little kind of slide here on just we get some common questions about sort of the scalability and safety of our platform. Shogo is entirely managed by professional services from via Rackspace and Amazon Web Services, AWS. They handle all of our network, all of our servers, all of our load balancing. We're currently in the 4 nines, 99.99% uptime through that relationship with them. Very secure, very safe, very reliable, very scalable. All of our connections with our cloud partners are done through those partners' authorization, secure authorization API processes. Our billing back to you is handled via Stripe. Same thing. It's all authenticated, encrypted, tokenized, etc. We don't, in Shogo anyway, pull in or store any end customer. So the person that came into the store, we don't store any personally identifiable information of those customers. We don't store their credit card information, anything else. We don't store any of that stuff. And then we go through a series of annual security audit reviews through some of our partners. Intuit does an annual review with us. Xero just did one as well. Sage is wrapping one up. And we go through those pretty much every year, where they come in and do a review of our app, our network, et cetera, for any vulnerabilities and so on. And then if there are any action items, they rank them and send them back to us, and then we rectify them if there are any that need addressing. So that is the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to just stop share for a second and switch screens, if that's okay, and then just kind of a quick.
And I will ask a couple questions if you're able to multitask. So we did, when I asked like kind of the industries we got, someone said that, or Cameron said that he's looking at this for table service and counter service restaurant clients that he has. And then the question that came back to NCR, they are using NCR Aloha Essentials, what you were talking about. So can you explain? I think you were telling me earlier that there's a couple different levels of NCR. And I mean, if you want to quickly touch on maybe, is there even a way to like upgrade from them, or are they all just completely different things?
Yeah, they're separate products. So the one we support is NCR Silver,
Okay.
which is, it is a, you can do counter serve. They do have, kitchen printing, excuse me, kitchen printing capability, things like that. But it's a completely separate, it's a cloud-based product. Aloha is server-based, so it's completely installed. And like I said, we're down to just the Micros E7 quick service product, because we're not abandoning, sounds like a bad word, but we're getting out of supporting server-based point of sale systems, just because they are so expensive to support.
Right. Well, and I mean, hasn't the majority of the industry, all, I don't know, everything technology wise has been kind of getting out of that?
Well, if you're new to the business, you're probably hopping onto one of the cloud players. But if you've been around for a while, and especially have a lot of locations, you're pretty entrenched on those Micros products, the Aloha product. Brink is a big player there. We do work with Brink because they have a cloud data migration service that we partner with. But Aloha is basically a big black box, and we just opted out basically.
Right. And how do you get that in there easily? So then Katrina was saying she is interested in hearing about the sync with Shopify and Xero, if you're able to look at that or not. I don't know.
Sure.
But I feel like kind of what you were saying on it's just the setup. It's going to be the setup, either it's Xero or it's what accounting system you have.
Sure. So can you see the new screen now?
Yes, I can.
So yeah, so when they come in to set up a Shogo account, this is the first thing. If you click on start a free trial, this is kind of the first thing you're going to see. And then if you're going to click on Shopify, and here you basically just put in your Shopify URL, and then you're going to go through a series of authentication processes that are rendered up by Shopify, and then you're connected. So and it's not generic to Shopify. It's pretty much standard. So each POS kind of has its own nuance, but that's kind of a common approach. Kate kind of does the same thing. You just type in an ID that you get from them, and that will then prompt you how to authorize the connection and so on. It's the same way. I don't know if you've ever integrated anything apps for QuickBooks Online. It's a similar approach where you
right.
Let me just show that as well. So since we you pick the point of sale, you connect to the point of sale. Let's go to pick a company. It's the same thing. So here's where you connect QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop. You can put in your company name. If you're using desktop from here,
it'll then say like hosted or what?
Well, let's see if this will. Yeah, it's going to give you the instructions to actually down. So we use the QuickBooks Web Connector.
Right.
It'll create a unique file for you that you download. It's going to give you all the step-by-step instructions to do it. It's going to give you your password you need to use to install it.
Perfect.
So all of that happens for QuickBooks Desktop. And then the others are very similar. So Xero has a connection authorization process. Exact Online, these are the 3 countries they support. Sage, these are the countries that they're in. So you select, they have different channels or different paths to their integration depending on what country you're in. So I'm assuming there aren't many people on this call that are super interested in that, other than just it's kind of cool.
Well, now that you bring it up, does QuickBooks Online have a different path for like the Canadian version, or
no? It's all the same. It's a somewhat different application once you get to QuickBooks. The connection is the same. The functionality is somewhat different. So QuickBooks Online, for example, Canada has different ways. It does,
sales tax.
I'm trying to remember which one is which. US versus Canada. One does sales tax for the entire sales receipt or invoice. The other one does it at a line item level, things like that.
Okay.
So that's back to the PowerPoint, connect, and then I'll just show you some mapping here. I have an example.
Again, like what I asked about having to be an expert in any of these systems doesn't, you have that handled.
Yeah, and I mean, the user interface is more around an accountant than a front office restaurant manager, right? So we're showing you the data at the end of all the process. So here's some of the bells and whistles and toggles that I won't bore you with all of them. Basically, here's where you define what type of posting you want: journal entry, sales receipt, itemized sales receipt, tracking classes. To your point earlier, Kathy, we do 4 locations.
Mm-hmm.
And these are those same bullet points from the PowerPoint as well. You map your sales. This is the data coming in from the point of sale. So again, you don't have to be part of that process. It's already in here when you're trying to configure the account, and then it's just lining it up. This is fully search account. You can search whatever. Classes, locations. Again, you can do it at the header level or at the line item level. Discounts. We also have defaulting, so you can do default everything to one account, or at the category level, default, all those other things. Payments. Here's where you can do the credit card grouping or not, etc. Cash drawer and so on. We let you preview it, and we also we guide you through where things are wrong. So these red error badges and yellow rows, and you can preview it. So this is exactly what the accounting posting using the most recent sales is going to look like. So you can kind of get a sense for exactly what it's going to look like when it goes to QuickBooks before you press go. Mm-hmm. Then once you do press go, it goes back to that process I talked about earlier. We'll grab the sales, we'll format them, we'll post them. The other data available in Shogo, again, we have those. I don't know how much data I have in here, but this particular location isn't.
It all comes back to the demo.
Yeah.
It being a demo file.
Here's one. So here's this customer's got a lot of issues, right? So here's this particular. This is a rejection from QuickBooks. Here's an example where the data came from the point of sale system. It's out of balance, right? So the sales and the payments coming from the payments from the point of sale are out of balance. We're the ones that are kind of monitoring that kind of data for you. Point of sale system point of sale partners are change their systems all the time. The way they handle a gift card or the way they handle an example is that a lot of them banged out functionality to do online or advanced ordering. Pretty much a lot of them broke a lot of stuff by doing it so quickly. Here's some accounting holds. Like, so for example, this posting here is on hold, and it's on hold because I had a gift card charity comp come in for yesterday that I don't have mapped. So those are all that's all that error handling and correcting that I was telling you about before. Some of it we resolve for you. Some of it we let you know about it so you can resolve it. But those are your reports. There's the forecasting. Here's the down below here is kind of here's that email snapshot I was telling you about. So kind of show you get something like this every morning or not. And this is also where if you give your customer access to Shogo, they could get access to this kind of stuff. So here's that stuff. Here's your sales yesterday. Here's what happened the prior year. Here's the percent versus the prior year. Here was your goal if you set one. Here's your average ticket size. How many customers came in the store? Was there an over short? A lot of customers, a lot of managers, for example, love this feature. Lets them keep their eye on people without being on the store. They get an email and say, hey, how come there's a $300 short for yesterday, that kind of stuff. Cash credit mix and things like that. You can drill down into a particular day of sales. You can look at it over a period of time. So instead of just a specific date. But if I was looking at just yesterday, for example, back to yesterday, it's going to show me my category sales. Same concept as what we talked about before. On the left side is, what did the customer pay for? Sales offset by discounts and comps, service charges, credit card tips, grand totals. You can see here, this is where we did the check. We had 4160 in sales and 4160 in payments. That's a fantastic thing. No out of balance. And here's how the customer paid. Visa, MasterCard, Amex. They've got house accounts, things like that happening. No over short. That's great. We also show you for comps. We show you how you did last year for weather. So if your sales are way off, you can come here, take a look, and say, oh, it's rainy last year or something like that is why that happened.
I love that.
We have product mix stuff, so you can look at an individual sales category. what sold well, in terms of both quantity and price. Here's also kind of to your question too, Kathy. If something is going wrong, and something has happened with an individual check or something with the point of sale data, you don't need access to the point of sale for that type of stuff, because in Shogo, we've pulled all the check details into Shogo. So I can see this, here's this individual check from this point of sale system for yesterday, and I can see everything about this check. So I can see here's how much they did in orange juice, raviolis, how much was discounted, here's the sales tax, there were the tips, and they paid with a Visa, right? So if there are things that require additional level of attention or analysis or review or whatever, the data is in Shogo, so you don't need to necessarily even have a user ID or anything back to the point of sale system. There's a lot of data available to help analyze data. If your customer, if you're doing, outsourced CFO for customers or something, for example, and they're asking you what's driving sales and on a particular day or whatever, you can kind of get a lot of that information from your Shogo account rather than going all the way back to the point of sale system.
So yeah, that's great. And then we can add more value to our services in that way. And, it doesn't, so we can, any range for the services we provide of bookkeeping up to, that part-time CFO or virtual CFO service.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This particular location isn't active for accountings, but if it were under this accounting tab, you'd see that detailed journal entry we showed in the preview, and it would show you all those same statuses we were talking about here. You'd see that individual status. So let's, again, here's an example of that hold. We'll come in here, we'll take a look at the accounting. So here's the entry. Here's the accounting system we're trying to go to, Sage Business Cloud, but we can't go there because of this is missing.
Right.
So that was a kind of a wham bam review of the online demo. We do have a franchise product as well. I won't bore you with the details of that unless you do have some franchise customers, and be happy to set up separate sessions with people that have that would like to take a look at some of that. But this also view here is kind of V2 of our analytics and reporting module that will be coming out next year as well for non-franchise products. So again, that product mix analysis, average ticket size, customer counts, number of locations you've got going on, sales sorted and ordered by any whatever metric you want to use, whether it's customer count or sales per ticket or whatever. So I will kind of pause there and see if there are any other questions I didn't specifically address, or if I addressed incompletely.
We do. So someone was asking, do you end up with data that becomes backlogged due to the desktop web connect breaking?
Right. So we keep that in our queue. So if you look at, see if I can find something.
I'm like, it's been so long since I've even looked at desktop. I'm like, yeah, Web Connect was a thing. That's about all I got.
Yeah, I just don't know if I have any that are live in this demo account. But yeah, so if you actually look.
So would it be like a failed thing or on hold or?
No, it would be posted, but
maybe like
yes.
it should be like Web Connect didn't work.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't bang one in here. Let me just.
Fine.
I'm going to talk about it, and you just have to take my word for it that it exists.
Yes, I believe you. I will believe you.
Here we go. So, we have two statuses, right? So we have the actual posting status. So this would be, if posted means we created what we think is a valid, balanced posting, whether it's a sales journal entry. So we have posted, hold. We have a series of different statuses of posting. And then we have what we call the sync status, right? So synced is the final confirmation back from the accounting system. So this has two values, true or false, right? Okay. So if in that scenario the PC had been turned off for a month, or the web connector got shut down for a whole year, whatever, as soon as that gets fired back up, all of the postings in Shogo, the status, if you looked at it before you fired it back up, what you'd see in Shogo is the status would all be posted, and the sync status would all be false. Once you fire up that web connector, it's going to go grab all that posting stuff out of the queue and start incrementally processing it, and pass fail. Most of them should pass, and then when they pass, it'll come back and automatically update here in Shogo as sync posted status, sync status of true.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might get a failure. It might be the status is failed and the sync status is failed. And here you might see an error that says QuickBooks item beer sales does not exist, right? So that means someone deleted that from QuickBooks and it doesn't exist anymore, but it's been used in their Shogo mapping. So QuickBooks rejected it. It comes back to us. It fails. We register it as an error, and then you get notice. You come in and resolve it. You either restore the item because you didn't mean to delete it, or you've set up a new one you want to use instead, and you come in and update your mapping. That flips the status back to post. Our background processes pick it up, send it to posted. The web connector wakes up, grabs it, and syncs it, and the cycle continues.
So it's kind of like, I'm thinking of, in my mind, to put it in I don't know, a way that non-tech people maybe get it, and you can tell me if I'm completely wrong here. So status, when it's posted, that's a green light. It's green light to go to whatever accounting system it goes, and then it's if the accounting system like pushes back or has a wall down or whatever, it's not there. But it's like Shogo knows as soon as that's open, it's going do, 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 I'm going back in and gonna figure it out.
Yeah, so, and it's the same thing. It's a similar thing on the point of sale side. So if there were an error state, so like I mentioned before about open checks or that out of balance, all things like that. If the data doesn't pass the basic Shogo data integrity check, then it never gets to posted.
You never turn on that green light to go to whatever system.
Yeah.
You don't Shogo it.
There's basically a processing status and a sync.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Someone wanted to know where you guys are located. I mean, I was thinking in the cloud. But...
Yeah, all over. I mean, we have a physical office in Cocoa, Florida. That's where I'm at.
With the best chandelier ever.
Yeah, this is my home, but it's not but the office is about 2 blocks over. But we have people in New Jersey, Ohio, all over. We have some development that happens in the UK. So we're an entirely virtual. Well, we have a physical presence, but we're primarily virtual and have been even pre-COVID.
Awesome. And if a past dates data needs edited, I guess, do you do that in your system or do you go into the accounting system?
You could do either, right? So for an example is if, and this kind of depends on what it is you're editing and what point of sale system and what accounting system, but generically, without getting too precise, but generically, say for example, you had miscoded you had a category for beer sales, and I don't know why I keep using alcohol categories as an example, but
because it's the life we're living in right now. That's the only way to get through.
So you had a category for beer sales, and you had a beer category, a wine category, and a liquor category, and previously you had them all going to an account in QuickBooks called liquor. And you sat down with the business owner and you agreed, you know what? Let's start tracking it in QuickBooks. I want to see beer, wine, and hard alcohol or liquor, not just alcohol.
Right.
So you create 3 new accounts in QuickBooks. In that particular scenario, we can regenerate your accounting using that new mapping, and then send updates to the previous postings.
Sweet. That's what I was going to ask. Is it an update or is it a new one? That's awesome.
It's an update with the proviso. I'm sure you're familiar with trying to update things that have been deposited. So if you match the bank deposit to the posting, you'd have to undo that first before we can send through the update. Another use case is, you had a PC crash, you hadn't done a backup in a month, you're not using the online backups or anything like that, so you've lost a month's worth of data. We can also resend that for you as well. That's not even a regeneration, you just want to resend data that was sent previously for a previous period of time. Another use case is we can do full history, so depending on point of sale system, obviously. But if you sign up with Shogo and the customer hasn't done any accounting for 8 months, you want all that processed, we can do that for you. Obviously, there's a fee to do so, but we can do it.
Well, it should be a fee to the client too.
That's up to you. I mean, it depends.
That's my opinion to you as a client, to you guys.
From our standpoint, somebody's going to pay us, right?
Right.
But how you pass that through would be your call. But it's
like, please accountants, do not just give it all away for free.
No, you should charge for it definitely. And in our particular case, well, we provide a 14-day free trial with Shogo. So in that instance, if it were give me all of this year, basically what we do is we just do a reset as though you created your account on Jan 1, right? So your 14-day trial would go from Jan 1 to Jan 14, and then it would be as though you'd used Shogo from January 15th forward.
Makes sense. It's a great way to price catch-up work too.
It's simple. It's easy to understand. I think some people in our space either do it for free or they discount it. We've been at it longer than some of them, and we realize that there are people out there that would take advantage of that discount, and they'll simply wait to sign up because it's going to be cheaper to get the history than if they had signed up with you 6 months ago. So just to keep it simple and keep the math simple and simple to understand, and that's just kind of the approach we took.
Well, and I'll say it's a very similar issue that accountants and bookkeepers run into all the time. Like people trying to find the way to kind of skip out on paying for them not doing the work for a while or whatever. So yes, completely understand it. I get it. Completely. We have a few minutes left if anyone else wants to pop in a question. But I think I've gone through them all so far. There are, I'm curious, I always kind of ask this question. What are like some of the most interesting businesses that you have seen as connected to Shogo? You like that?
We have it all. I guess it depends on what you find interesting. I guess some interesting things that we did notice during COVID, because we also had some of our own internal analytics on our customer profiles and so on.
Right.
The people we saw, for example, thriving during COVID. I can tell you the list. It was gun stores.
Wow.
It was CBD and liquor stores. Vape shops did quite well. And then in food, we have a number of customers, for example, that were drive-throughs or drive-ups. So we have a coffee chain out west. They were pre-COVID. They didn't have an interior restaurant. It was purely a drive-up. You drive up to a window and get your coffee. It's not like even a Starbucks. It's you drive up, you get your coffee and go. They were doing phenomenal business. Some of their sales are up 200-300% comp sales up over last year. So, that's why I can tell you who Drive bicycle shops did quite well. Things.
Well, people can even buy bicycles.
We had the people that wanted to get healthy and bought a bike, or you had the ones that went to the liquor store.
Or they were drinking while on the bike.
Yeah, so those are kind of the ones we saw that did quite well during COVID. Obviously, our table service, food service, restaurant customers fared the worst in it all.
Right.
But kind of varied about how customers came through it.
We did have one person say that their previous niche was hospitality, so wedding and event vendors. So she is looking, that had a huge hit. So she's looking at the e-commerce space now and trying to maybe go in that direction. And it seems
public catering was another kind of good one.
Okay. It seems like e-commerce is definitely growing right now. And it's a good direction to look at for clients. Yeah, and again, we support both. So whether your customer has an e-com shop in the Shopify Square Online space, or they're brick and mortar, lion's share of our customers right now are still brick and mortar. We have quite a few who are new into now the omni-channel space, online, brick and mortar, takeaway, all that kind of stuff. It's crazy. It's been a very interesting year so far. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I will say thank you to everyone, to you, Brian, for sharing all of this with us. I absolutely love all the flexibility that you have, and looks like a million different ways that you can set this up between systems, options, all of this sort of stuff is great.
Well, I guess thank you, everyone. If you want to know more, shogo.io, shogo.io. You can sign up there, find out more there. We have a knowledge base there. We have a contact submission form. You can reach us in lots of different ways. Hope to see some of you soon. Any questions at all, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to help. And have a
Awesome.
great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thank you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Kathy. Bye.